What is up, everybody? Welcome into Chris and Company. This is episode 9. I am Chris Castellani. Really fun interview coming up today with Casey Mize. I mean, is this? I don't want to, be all Larry King here for a second, but is this Mize's big first tell-all post Tommy John surgery in the middle of spring training, taking time out of his day to talk to the Barstool kid from the gas station? So no, look, I really appreciate it. Very fun interview. Before we get into that, though, I want you guys to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching this on Rumble, if you're watching this on YouTube, let's get those watch hours up. In the description for this video on YouTube and Rumble, you will find the link to the Linktree, where you will find every platform that offers Chris and Company, everything your heart desires: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Rumble, YouTube, all these beautiful, beautiful things. You are welcome to find Chris and Company on any platform that your heart desires. All right. Is that it right now? Yeah, I think that's it for right now. Let's get to our interview with Casey Mize. All right, Chris and Company, episode 9. Really excited about this one. We have former number 1 overall pick, former top prospect, current Detroit Tigers pitcher. He's back, finally. Thank God. Casey Mize joins the program. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm doing great. I feel good and, glad to be back in competition mode instead of just observing. So it's good to be back in the mix, and it's been fun so far.
2 starts in. I mean, it's such a small sample size in spring, but I guess what's your assessment of what you've done so far in your 2 outings?
I've been really excited. I think that's a good way to put it. Just adrenaline's been through the roof. I'm trying to suppress that a little bit, but it's just, this is what I've been looking forward to, and being back in it. It's difficult to harness that sometimes, which has led to some arm side and high fastballs and walking a couple guys each outing, which I wasn't happy about, but I'm happy with with how the ball's coming out of my hand and some of my shapes that we've been seeing in the reports and some of the swings we've been getting. So a lot to like, but definitely a lot to improve on, for sure.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is even in spring, considering, I mean, it's been almost 2 full years since you've pitched in a major league game. Even in spring, is it hard not to get juiced up and maybe overthrow a little bit on some of those heaters?
No, for sure. Especially when you're going 1 or 2 innings or whatever, especially as a starter, you just, this is a little different. So I can let loose a little bit. So it's tougher to, you're not going, 6, 7 innings. So you don't have to save any bullets. You can kind of just, give it all. So a combination of that, and obviously me not doing it for a long time, and just the excitement's through the roof right now. So, which is a good thing, but definitely need to harness it and, put the ball in the strike zone a little bit more.
I feel like especially the conditions as well being perfect. When you get to Detroit come April, it's going to be 40 degrees. It might not be as amped, throwing heaters at 97. But I want to go back, as I kind of do with all these interviews, and do something of a deep dive. You're from Springfield. You grew up in Alabama. Was your plan growing up? Were you an Auburn fan growing up? Was the plan always to try to be an Auburn Tiger?
Oh yeah. Growing up, small town, Springfield, Alabama. Proud of that, but. Grew up a huge Auburn fan. Most people in my family were. So it was, when I was a kid, that was always my goal, is to go to Auburn and, be a baseball player and then get drafted and be a big leaguer. So, those things have come true. And so it's just been a huge blessing. But yeah, I definitely grew up loving Auburn. Still love them, super crazy about them. And right now in the middle of the basketball season, so following up with that. So.
They've had a renaissance, man, in basketball with Bruce Pearl over the last 5-6 years, man. I mean,
he's done a good job. So
he's done a great job. Yeah, he did a great job at Tennessee too. I mean, he's always been
good coach.
Where were you? I gotta ask, man, where were you at for the Kick 6 in 2013?
I was in the stadium with my brother.
Were you there? Nice.
Yeah. I was already committed, and I was just on another unofficial visit. They kind of hooked us up with some tickets, so we were there. We were down the end zone where they were kicking to. We were sideways to that, so we can see that the field goal was short, and so we were celebrating a little bit, and then realized he had caught the ball and was taking it the other way. So it was a pretty surreal moment. Yeah,
probably outside of Michigan moments, probably my favorite moment in college football history. I mean, you just remember where you were. I did not have the fortune of doing anything that cool. I was at an Applebee's in East Lansing, Michigan, so not quite enjoying it, living it up.
Cool.
Was it difficult sharing a locker room with Turnbull, given his Bama connection?
Yeah, we had some banter, with the Bama guys. We got Dylan Smith with us as well, so in the minor league. So, us and the Bama guys are always going at it. We got Trey Wingenter in the locker room with us now, so he's another Auburn guy, and so he helps me out.
I want to jump ahead to your kind of development here, because you were not drafted out of high school, and then 3 years later you're going number 1 overall in the draft. I guess, what changed in terms of your development there that you went from, this was back when the draft was 40 rounds.
Then 40 rounds.
Number 1 overall pick. What changed for you?
I just think got, more polished, I guess, and just really, in high school, everybody plays multiple positions or whatever. And I really started to specialize in pitching, I guess, close to my, at the end of my sophomore year, my junior year. So, it was definitely super talented and was probably good enough to get drafted. I just think, the money didn't line up or whatever. And then, nobody drafted me, but, had some looks from some schools, ended up going to Auburn, because that was, like I said, the plan all along. And then I just started, learning a ton, from really talented teammates and, coaches. Coach Butch Thompson is somebody I owe a lot to for my development. And then physically, I put on about 15 pounds a year at Auburn, just got bigger and stronger, and the ball started coming out better, and, just really grew as a pitcher. So Coach Thompson actually let my catcher and I call our own pitches, so I think that was a big deal, because normally in college, you had the pitching coach just, calling those or whatever. So I think that was really good for my development as well.
How early in your development did you realize that splitter was such a weapon for you?
I think probably later in my freshman year at school. When I got there in the fall of my freshman year, I was already throwing a splitter in high school at the very end, but my coach had me change my grip on it when I got to school. And so that it came pretty naturally to me, but I just wasn't throwing it a ton because it was a newer pitch. And then once I started realizing I was having really good results, I started using it a lot more, and definitely relied on that pitch for definitely my last couple of years of school.
Was there ever any desire, maybe not to be a two-way player, but I guess at what point in your development did you know it's going to be pitching? Like, my MO needs to be to develop into a pitcher.
Yeah, I was playing travel ball in the summer in Atlanta, Georgia, for Team Georgia Baseball Academy. My head coach was Chris McCraney, and he evaluates tons of high schoolers and tries to navigate them to get to college and beyond. And he was pretty transparent with me of, I know you might be the best player on your high school team and in your county in Alabama, playing shortstop or whatever. But as you can see, really talented players that are, you're surrounded by now, that shortstop might not be the future for you, but I think pitching really is. And so trusted him in that. And, I've always loved pitching. It wasn't like something I picked up, on the spot there. But just really started to dedicate it, most of my work, to pitching from that point on.
You ever miss hitting?
Sometimes, yeah. So, sometimes I do. I want to step in the cage and hit a little bit and take BP or whatever. But facing Luis Castillo in the big leagues was a good reminder that it might not be for me.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You did draw a walk against that was against Flaherty, wasn't it?
It was Jack Flaherty.
Have you talked to him about that yet?
I haven't yet. I'm trying to. I'm going to ease my way into that one, and then but that conversation is coming soon.
Might be something of a sore subject for him, I would imagine. But it was your kind of come up was, I'm sure it must have been frustrating to a certain extent, because you have this really good year in 19, in the minors, and then it seems like you're fighting for a spot. You're probably going to get called up at some point, and then the world stops. We get COVID for months on end, I guess. And I talked to Scooble about this, where nobody knew if there was going to be baseball. So I guess for you, both mentally and physically, how were you preparing for that season, knowing like, okay, we might get the call any day, we might never get the call, and I might not make my debut until next year. Who knows? Yeah, no,
it was frustrating, obviously, for everyone. But on our end, it was difficult to find facilities, difficult to find catchers, throwing partners, whatever. So we were doing anything we could with plyo balls or throwing into a sock or whatever, just trying to, keep your body in shape and keep it moving. And then we all kind of reconvened in Detroit for the summer camp or whatever. And, we're hitting the ground running there. So you're trying not to get hurt, just because you're kind of jumping back into everything really quickly. So trying to ease your way in while also being really competitive at the same time was pretty difficult to navigate. So I don't make the team there. Obviously, I go to the alternate camp, alternate site, and that was another difficult thing. You're just facing the same guys over and over and over, and about the second or third outing, you're just getting smacked around because they know what you're going to throw or whatever. So then get called up, face the White Sox was pretty special, and obviously wasn't as special as the normal debuts where your family and friends and fans are there. But it was still a goal accomplished for me that I was proud of. But it's definitely weird times, and but it turned out all right.
Physically, just where was your body at that point? Because a lot of guys have been open about like that they just didn't feel like they had were prepared for kind of the grind of the season. Did you feel good coming into that year, or was it tough for you as well?
Physically, I felt okay. I mean, obviously, wasn't as polished as as normally are of a normal build-up of spring training and off season, and whatever. You're like I said, you're just making do. So I wasn't hurting, or anything like that, but definitely just felt a little out of whack and felt like I haven't thrown that much, which I feel probably everybody felt that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and during the time in which you and Scooble and Mize were kind of, and Manning were coming up through the system there, we were, as fans, we were excited for you guys to ascend through the system and to make your major league debut. And then obviously the most random of circumstances happened. I asked Scooble about this, but did you feel kind of maybe ripped off is a bit too strong of a phrase to use, but were you disappointed that you didn't get that proper major league debut with the standing ovation and the full Comerica Park, or was it just kind of something you accepted?
At the time, I just accepted it, but I mean, obviously growing up as a kid, and I'm going to look back on and wish that, this wasn't how I imagined it was going to go. And, I certainly wish it could have been, a full stadium, and with my family and friends and whoever in attendance, and just being able to share that with so many people. So definitely, kind of sucks that, we didn't get that. But at the end of the day, so many people had to go through that or whatever. And, it is what it is. So I'm not too beat up about it now, but it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And it made the next year kind of interesting because you didn't that year, essentially in terms of rookie limits, didn't count. Like that did not count as your rookie season. Your official rookie season was the next year. So I remember you start off that year against the Twins, you go 4 innings, you give up 1 run. And then your second outing was against a team that would end up winning the American League. You were brilliant. You went 7 scoreless. You were fantastic against the Astros. Did you feel something of a shift in that start, maybe even coming into that start, or was it just you'd kind of been going through the same progressions and something just hit for you?
I think I was just confident actually coming off that start against the Twins. I mean, I know it was 4 innings of 1-run ball. It wasn't crazy, but I felt good leaving that start of like, you know what, that was a pretty good one, and 8 starts in, hadn't got my first big league win yet. So I was definitely wanting that. So probably just a combination of those things, just a little extra edge going and playing a really good team in the Astros, and had a good day, got the first win finally, in my 9th start. So I think it was just a little confidence coming off the heels of the Twins and just, kind of knowing I needed to have a good one that day to kind of settle in.
Yeah, I remember for a first start in 21. I remember thinking you pitched fine. The 4 innings, 1 earned. Pitch count got elevated, so AJ pulled you. I remember, but I think that there was an inning in the Astros start where I think they had second and third, maybe 1 out, and I think you might have struck out Altuve and then gotten the next guy to ground out. And it seemed like in that moment, it seemed like you really settled in. After that, I mean, it's got to be such a plus doing it against a lineup that's that tough too. I mean, not all major league lineups are tough, but it's like, especially when you're going through, and that was the other thing that always bothered me with both you and Scooble is that they had you guys starting off against that White Sox team when we could not get Tim Anderson out, dude. We could not. He had a 500 average against us in the COVID year that year. And I'm like, we played the Pirates the series before, and I'm like, you couldn't have started him there. Like you couldn't have given him, that was a bit frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. No, they called us and like, all right, you're going to board the plane. You're going to pitch against in Chicago. And we're like, Cubs or White Sox? It's the White Sox. Like, yeah, like, uh-oh, like this might be tough. So
yeah, it's got to start. You got Anderson, Robert, like Eloy Jimenez, and Encarnacion to hit the home run against you. Yeah, that was But then, you get to 21, you have a good year in 2021. And I think in general, a lot of fans were really excited about the progression that you and all those guys had, throughout the season. Then, of course, you get to August, September, and the innings limit starts to settle in, which was everyone knew was coming at some point, given, your guys' age. At the same time, were you you're a competitive guy, obviously. Were you frustrated by the innings limit, or was it just something you kind of came to understand given kind of AJ and the organization's perspective on things?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, I wanted to respect, AJ and the organizational decision to do that. And trust me, coming off 28 innings before, now we were pushing at that time 130 plus, ended up throwing 150. So I understand why we kind of had to tone it down and really not let me qualify or more. I mean, I definitely was in a position to do that. But like I said, I totally understand why we had to back it down. At the same time, it was certainly frustrating. You can't. I can only get a loss here. Can't go 5 innings and get a win. Can't go deep into a game. The bullpen's probably pissed that I'm not eating innings or whatever. So and from a competitive standpoint, you want to be able to navigate the lineup a few times or whatever. So it was difficult, but I tried to respect, why we were doing it. And I understood it at the time as equally as frustrating as it was.
Did you approach those starts the way that you would have approached potentially going 6-7 innings in a start, or was it similar to kind of what you're doing in spring right now, where it's going to be a finite amount of innings, it's going to be a finite amount of pitches, maybe be a bit more aggressive? What was kind of your plan going into those starts?
I still think like 90% of it was the same, probably, of just like a normal start, but also you could, it's a 1-2 count. I know pitch count's not really going to mean much today, so let me try to really execute a pitch out of the zone and or whatever. So you had a few extra pitches to work with, where you didn't feel like pitch count was something you had to keep an eye on. So you could try to live on the edges a little bit and try to be a little bit more perfect or whatever is kind of how I felt. But for the most part, it was pretty much just the same of approaching it the same way.
Did you view that season individually as a success for yourself?
I did, yeah. I took down 30 starts, 150 innings. Provided value. I think that's it means a lot to me that I was able to do it. Especially off of tough 2020 and in 21, I felt like I was the best starter on the team. And now looking back, that was true. And in my rookie season, if you're saying, hey man, you're going to get to the big leagues one day, in your rookie year, you're going to be the best starter on a major league team. How do you feel about that? I would take that, and I still would. So obviously there were things there that I needed to improve on, and I'm certainly aware of that. But I did allow myself to feel really proud of that, and I still do. I'm happy with what I was able to accomplish that year and what we were able to do as a team, and kind of take a step forward.
It becomes tough because I think, especially given the history of pitchers that have come through Detroit, you're always compared to somebody that came before you who might have been, I remember like your first 5 starts, people saying, well, it's not that much different than, Verlander's 5 starts. It's like, well, yeah, Verlander, like it's a completely different entity and a completely different pitcher. But at the end of the day, look, yeah, you had a 3-WAR season as a rookie. Like, I think everyone kind of would have taken that. You go into 2022, it seemed like the vibes were pretty good. You have the first start against the White Sox, second start against the Royals, and you get taken out of the game. In that moment, because it kind of ended up being a long form thing where we didn't really find out the severity of it for a couple months. In that moment, did you sense that it was something serious that you were dealing with?
Yeah. So let me back up a bit. Like going into that season, I was just off the heels of 21, super excited, for what was to come. I earned the number 2 spot behind Eduardo, who we had just signed, and was super proud of that. And obviously we had a lot of hopes going into that year. And second start, yeah, I mean, I made it through that start. I didn't really leave it with the injury at the time, and even after the game, I wasn't concerned about anything at all. And then I just woke up the next day, and my elbow was definitely really sore. Kind of just felt like full, to be honest. I was like, oh well, I'm just gonna go in, do my normal thing, play some catch, throw my bullpen tomorrow, and then if I still feel anything weird, I'll let the training staff know. Well, it didn't really get to that because that day one, I tried to play catch, and it just certainly did not feel good enough to throw over 90 feet, or definitely couldn't get a bullpen in the next day. So I went and told them that something was going on, and so they put me on the IL to go get MRI. And to be honest, it didn't show a ton. It showed a some minor inflammation, maybe like a grade 1 sprain. So the advice was to take some time, get back into a throwing program, and see where we're at down the road. And that's what we tried to do. And coming back, I did feel better. I felt fine. Looking back on it, I think I might have avoided some signs, to be honest, of this thing's not really 100%. Like I wasn't really letting loose in my bullpens or my live BP to come back, and then was kind of holding something back, I think. And then when I get to my rehab assignment in AAA, just laying them in there at 89, 90, just getting smacked around, just not feeling good. Something's not, my elbow's kind of hurting again. So then we have to reevaluate again. This is in June, so this is 2 months after, and head down and see Dr. Meister in Texas, and we do a different form of an MRI where I'm kind of like in layback, like in the throwing motion, and so that kind of spread open my elbow in a way, to where you couldn't really see the tears in my ligament if it was just a normal MRI, like overhead MRI, because it wasn't being stretched. And so with this stretching MRI, essentially it showed so many micro tears, and my ligament stretched like 4 or 5 times the normal amount that it's supposed to. So the recommendation was to, get surgery, and that's what we did.
Yeah, you talk about that you might have ignored a few signs on the way, to surgery. I mean, I feel like that's just human nature, especially as a pitcher, like, because especially throughout the season, you're going to deal with aches and pains anyway. So you never know like what's severe, what's something that's going to heal.
Exactly.
And
sorry to interrupt, but like that thought process of like, this thing doesn't feel 100%, but like who does feel 100% coming off the IL, right? So it's like, just keep working through this thing. I'm not going to go get under the knife unless I have to, so I'm going to keep working through whatever. And I tried to push through or whatever, but obviously it, needed to get the surgery.
Is there anything you would have done different through that process, or do you feel like it kind of would have resulted in the same thing regardless?
It was always going to end in surgery. I think if hindsight, if I were to look back, I probably would have pushed myself a little bit more within that period of April to June, like really trying to let loose and just give myself a good, hey man, this thing's okay, or that this thing's not. And like I said, I think I kind of sidestepped and kind of babied some mound work or whatever, just trying to push through or trying to get back, because I just, that's all I wanted, just to get back to the big leagues and compete. So if anything, maybe would have pushed it a little harder, so it would have presented itself a little bit earlier again.
Yeah, no, and I think that was kind of the frustration of the process, is that, you got injured in April, and I don't think it was announced that you were getting Tommy John until June. So it was kind of this long waiting game for a lot of people being like, is it going to be okay? Obviously we talked so much about the rehabbing part of it and that, the science behind that. But I'm always kind of curious as to what's going on, in people's heads through that, because you come in super hyped, you're number 1 pick in the draft. You have a very good rookie year. Then all of a sudden you're kind of back to square one. Is from a mental standpoint, how did that affect you, knowing that, you're going to be out for a while, and this is going to kind of take, a lot of that sheen that you came in with might be gone?
It was tough for me, not really caring about, not really caring about what people were going to think about it. It was just me, that I'm not going to be able to do what I love, for the next year and a half. We knew with the timing of the surgery in June that, pitching even in 2023 was unlikely. So that was just a tough pill to swallow of, hey man, we're going to slow play this thing. We're going to make sure you're right for 24. And just being told that in June of 22 is just, man, that's so far down the road, so it was pretty devastating in the moment of just like, this is what I love. I finally got to the big leagues. I provided value. I earned the number 2 spot. We have a good team. I feel good about what's going on. This is kind of how I envisioned my career going in the early stages. And for that to kind of all just get changed in an instant, it was pretty difficult to come to grips with. But then, you can't sit there and feel sorry for yourself too long, or you're just going to do yourself a disservice. So I was leaning on people who had went through this process. Unfortunately, we got a lot of them in the clubhouse of guys who have went through this thing. So I was asking them questions and leaning on them of, how did you handle this? Or what do I need to do to, maximize this process or whatever? So just got to work. And, a lot of people helped me throughout that process and just kind of kept me focused on today instead of looking forward to, spring of 24, or how far away that was or whatever. So, or, the things that we had just been through, the previous months. It's just, focus on today and move forward. But every day it was a battle, going in and doing the work and trying to stay focused on that. Because you definitely, I just wanted to be elsewhere doing other things, which was, competing in the big leagues and winning games. So it was tough.
I'm really glad you kind of brought up the history of some of the other guys in the clubhouse, because I'm always curious as to the separation between the player's mindset and the fan's mindset, because there was a period there, especially right around when you went through your injury, where you kind of looked around like, dude, every single one of these guys that we like is suffering some like serious, like they're not getting, they're not pulling hamstring. Yeah. These are Tommy John and major shoulder surgeries. I guess was that something that you guys ever discussed of like, man, Jesus, if we could just catch a break here, like I know we're good, but it's we feel like you guys, Mize and God damn it, second time, you Manning and Scooble have very rarely had your same turn through the rotation like the same time in the years that you've been. Was there any discussion about how frustrating that was amongst the three of you, and Turnbull as well?
Yeah, the hits just kept coming, and it was pretty difficult. We couldn't really align exactly, what we were trying to put forward, which is just all of us in the rotation at once for an extended period of time. And so that was certainly frustrated that we couldn't do that. And for the other guys, they just kept moving forward and doing their thing, which I was happy to see. But it was definitely difficult that we had spent so many years trying to build this thing in the big leagues, and then right when we kind of breaking in. We're getting these injuries and not really having that time together there like we had hoped. So it was difficult, and we didn't harp on it too much. We were just you got to move forward and get back and got to revise the plan, but it's still in place and get back and do this thing together.
I have to ask about this because I've seen it before, and I'm curious if you've seen it. I think after your second start, I believe was your second or third start against the Reds. It was
in 22?
No, in 20.
Or
not the Reds. Reds or Twins. I think it might have been the Twins. I'm sorry. Yeah, you had started
in 20. The Twins. Oh, the Twins, I think, was a second start. Yeah.
Second start against the Twins. There was a video on MLB Network that was passed around of Pedro Martinez talking about your mechanics. I don't know if you've seen it, but essentially he said that your mechanics were putting a lot of stress on your elbow. He said the stuff was great. He came up as a guy that was throwing, could throw 5 pitches for strikes. Was there ever any discussion in the minor leagues about maybe changing that up in the hopes of, putting less stress on that part of your body?
I saw the video, and I think the world of Pedro. I mean, God, he's one of the greatest. So really highly of him, right? So were there changes based on that video? No, there were not.
Right. I meant more so in the minors. Like, was there a discussion?
Yeah. We definitely had, people who were, trying to make all of our guys better. For me, there wasn't a ton mechanically coming out of college that we wanted to change. There was, I remember something that Tigers addressed was my went out of the stretch. I kind of had like this really widespread, base out of the stretch. And so, they kind of moved my feet closer together. That's something they wanted to do. So we changed that. And then it's just, tinkering here and there as we're watching start to start and just making sure nothing's, going too astray. But for the most part, there was nothing that we viewed or that they viewed of like, hey man, this one thing outside of the stretch, you need to change. So I think they did a good job of, kind of letting me be myself and kind of just settle in. And obviously we didn't get a ton of time there because, the only minor league season I had was at 19 and then 20 happened. So, not a lot of change what was had with me, to be honest.
Yeah, no, and it's a tough thing as an organization, I feel like, to deal with when the stuff is that good. I think a pitcher that went through a very similar arc was Strasburg when he was coming up, where he had a lot of people kind of said the same stuff about his mechanics. And it's like, well, I mean, you don't want to worry about tinkering with it too much because the stuff is that good. Like, if you stay healthy, we're talking about a guy with Cy Young potential. The pitch that you were kind of known for coming up through the system and what you got drafted for was that put away pitch being your splitter. Yep. And you were pretty open about the fact that you never felt like you had a great feel for that pitch throughout 21. You weren't missing as many bats with it as maybe people had hoped. What kind of happened where you felt like, not lost a feel for it because you were still throwing it for strikes, but maybe weren't throwing it as effectively as you had when you were at Auburn and coming up through the minors? Yeah,
it was strange. I think it's a combination of things. Like I evolved, if you look at my mechanics coming out of school and my mechanics at 21, it's different. I think you just change as a pitcher. And I think, maybe some issues with my back maybe led to that as well, which led to a different release point and different whatever, how the ball's coming out. And certainly a different baseball. It's a different baseball in the big leagues than I was thrown with. So I think it's a combination of just like some changes that unfortunately led to some inconsistencies in my split. Some days it would be great and some days, not so much. So that was frustrating for me. It was obviously a pitch that I heavily rely on. So it was frustrating to try to navigate that, but, still believe in it and, still know it can be a weapon for me.
Do you feel like there might have been a point in college or even early in the minors where maybe you relied on it a little bit too much?
I wouldn't say in the minors, maybe a little bit in college. I wouldn't say in the minor leagues because I actually, started to develop a quality a slider, which I was, really comfortable with throwing, and that even bled over into 2020 and 21, which I was, really liked that pitch actually. So I wouldn't say so in the minors, maybe more so in college.
Yeah, and I feel like, when your number one goal is to get out, it's probably easy to fall into that trap when you have a pitch like that. I remember the start where I thought your splitter probably worked the best was actually your first start against the White Sox. I remember thinking first time through the order, you got 3 or 4 strikeouts on that pitch. Now, obviously, you were the first number 1 overall pick in the Avila era. A lot of time has passed. Time flies, man. It's been 6 years almost since you were drafted. It's wild. But I was waiting tables, but. You've now grown, and now we're into the Scott Harris era here. And I don't want to put you in a spot where you're comparing the two guys as people, but in terms of the administrations and what you've seen, have you noticed any differences in terms of analytics or just how the organization's going about their business versus where it was when you got drafted?
Yeah, it's certainly a lot different. And I'm not saying even if Al and his staff were here, it would probably be different today, even with that.
Right.
With that. Than it was in 18, just because of the growth of the game and how things are evolving. So I definitely just don't want to say that it would be completely different, with them. So, but, obviously I really like what we have going on now. We've revamped a lot of different departments just, to be as close to cutting edge as we can and, kind of leading from the front and instead of, kind of being on the back end of things. So there's a lot of new systems and new people here to help us get better, which we've been utilizing, as great resources. So definitely thankful for those changes. And there's still a lot to be done, but I think, we're definitely in a really good spot and moving forward. So there's a lot of differences, but, I think both people and both administrations, I guess, or, staff have can provide a lot of quality and good things in both areas. So, I've definitely good things to say about both.
Being a guy who's caught a lot of pitchers, what kind of insight is AJ able to give you in terms of how you go about your business when you're on the mound?
Yeah, AJ's great. Obviously a ton of managers, former catchers, just because they provide that different perspective of knowing really a lot of the roles that are going on. And, for him, I think he understands, he knows when a guy's just, kind of attacking the mitt and, really attacking hitters or whatnot. Being a former catcher, he would be able to tell, when a pitcher's on that day or whatever. And him managing, some great pitchers, as well. He's learned from that as well. So he's kind of reciprocated some of that to us of, I've seen the great ones do this. This is how they prepare. This is how they've competed, recovered, whatever. This is their mentality. So I think that perspective and that experience he brings has helped me a ton and definitely will continue to. So, I think really highly of AJ. So,
yeah, no, he's a man. And when I talked to Scooble, I was pleased and happy to hear that. It seems like he's very much all in with the advanced analytics stuff, going to Driveline in the off season, iPads in the dugout type of stuff. And I'm always very interested in kind of the people's mindset because I feel like it can get overwhelming. Have you bought into that stuff just as much, or are you more of a I'm just gonna get the ball every 5th day and listen to my catcher type of thing?
No, I think I've been, fortunately at Auburn, we had a ton of technology and a ton of resources, at the place that, my agency has a facility in Nashville that I went to after I was drafted, and we had a ton of resources there. And I was always interested in pitch design and development and how we can get better. So I definitely have, I've always had an interest in that kind of stuff. So this new group has provided me with more information that I can continue to learn on and or lean on and learn from. And so that's been amazing just because I really am interested and want to learn as much as I can. I just view it as a competitive edge, and as competitors, we're just looking for that. But with that being said, I will say that there were times, throughout my career so far that I've leaned a little bit too heavily into a scouting report of getting lost in numbers and trying to be perfect or whatever. And maybe lost that, hey man, just lean on your strength and just go attack this guy and be in the zone and just be yourself. So I think, that could be something that I improve on, is just, kind of just reverting back to a little bit of finding a good balance of being informed and, having a really good game plan. But at the end of the day, just, being committed to what you are foundationally as a pitcher, because that's what's going to lead to, the most success. So I think it's a good balance of that is probably the best thing.
I feel like there's definitely a fine line between trusting the data while also knowing you need to trust your stuff, type of thing. Where if you can look, like you said, you can look at all the scouting reports you want, but if you got 99 in your back pocket, like, don't be afraid to to throw it.
Yeah,
throw
very
it
well, but, for sure. So it's for me, it's going to be reverting back a little bit more to, hey man, I'm good enough, and even if it is your strength, I feel better about my strength. So.
You were very open about the fact, and I heard you say in an interview that you believed that you were the best player in the draft the year that you were drafted. During the whole process, Tommy John and the recovery, almost 2 years in between starts, has your belief in yourself, was there any point where it wavered at all?
Listen, man, there's, throughout this process, you have tons of time to sit and think, unfortunately, about the good and the bad. And I still think that my career is right out there in front of me, and I can accomplish all the things that I want to. And, that's really exciting. It would probably be a lie to you that, I've certainly had, if I said I didn't have doubts throughout this process, I certainly have had doubts and fear and whatever. But I've been able to squash that pretty quickly, just because I'm confident in myself as a person and as a player of, hey man, move forward, put one foot in front of the other. This is life. Things are still pretty good, and you're still young, and this is all in front of you. So just go take it. And so that's where I'm at right now. That stuff might've crept in momentarily, but it didn't stick around long. I'm definitely confident in moving forward of where I'm at.
That's great to hear. And it's a weird thing with Tommy John, where I think that it's, a lot of people react to it differently. And I'm talking like as fans, where nowadays when I hear about it, it's just like, it's almost this bizarre rite of passage where it's like, I'm confident you can still be a very good pitcher here. Where there's so many guys. I mean, Scooble's had it. Like, I mean, a bunch of these different guys, the Falmers, I think had it twice when you guys were teammates. Like, it's kind of wild. I mean, it sucks, that you got to miss 18 months of playing, but it's almost like, I've seen guys come back and be every bit as effective. But probably one of the bigger downsides of Tommy John is not even that when you're back from injury, there's still that paying attention, that monitoring of innings, monitoring of pitch counts. Have you had discussions with AJ or people within the organization about how your situation might be handled throughout the season this year as you come back from Tommy John?
I would just call it preliminary discussions of like, hey man, we're not going to decide on a number, or if you're pitching every 5th day or 6th day or you're whatever. Like, we haven't just decided those details, because I'm just not sure we need to. Like, we're going to see watch spring play out and go about this thing and just try to make informed decisions with the most information that we have at hand. So I think we're just going to wait and just see how things go. And then obviously we're going to lean on, doctors and, medical staff to decide on, hey, this is probably an end goal that we have here, but the ways we can get there can look a lot different, so we're just going to be pretty smart about that. But like I said, we haven't fully decided on what it's going to look like every detail yet. But obviously I'm aware of the fact that, some things could be a little different than normal. So.
Yeah. And I feel like it's always dangerous. I'm glad they're not putting a number on it, because I feel like what that leads to is, that what happened with Strasburg, going back to that again, where it's like, hey, you pitched your 150 innings. I know we're in a pennant chase, but like, sorry, man, you're shut down. Like, there's a lot of, there's ways around that. Like, if you guys are winning the Central, I want you on the mound. Like, and I know AJ will too.
Yeah. I feel like that's my stipulation is, save some innings for October. So, yeah.
Right. And I guess coming into this year with this team, I mean, it's second full year with Harris, under his regime. It's your, first year back. What's the difference in terms of kind of the mood in the clubhouse from this team compared to where you were maybe 2 years ago before pre-injury?
I would just say competitive. I think that's been the biggest, just different feel that we've had. I mean, obviously, you're in a big league clubhouse always. There's going to have a little bit of a competitive feel to it, but just talking with the guys and looking around the room, it's a little bit, it's a little bit revved up this year. That competitive energy, you can kind of see it and feel it. So that's the difference. And I think, if you look at good teams around the league, you don't think they're feeling like they're in a competitive environment. They are, so that's where we need to be headed, and we're there, so it's a good feeling, because you don't want to, you don't want to feel like, oh, what I do today doesn't matter because I'm going to make the team or I'm not going to make the team or whatever, right? You just want to be in good competitive environments that, we have good players around here. And even if I don't do my job well, I believe other people can, and we can still win today's game, so that's a really good feeling of we have a little bit more depth. We have a more competitive environment, and we have guys that, we believe, can win the Central. So I think that's been the biggest difference for me.
Even as, somebody who is, an observer, how much joy did you get out of seeing the way that last year's team improved? And did it change your perspective about how you feel about this year's team coming into it, knowing that, hey, they're above 500 in the second half, you add some pieces in the offseason, feeling pretty good?
No, yeah. I mean, I kind of felt similar probably to what the fans did of, I was an observer as well. And we all saw that the team was playing really good down the stretch, played really good in the division, had some growth out of the core in the lineup. Skubal just was dominant at the end. Bullpen was nails. There's definitely pieces there where you're just like, there's some really good momentum that we're riding into the off season and with the additions that we made into this season. So I was certainly excited, luckily I was there in Detroit rehabbing. So I was kind of there to see it, firsthand. So I think I shared in the same sentiment, as the fans of just super, excited for, what's going to come in 24 and beyond.
I want to ask one kind of fun one. And if they're still in the league, if you don't want to give it away, I guess you don't have to answer. Who's a hitter in the league right now that you can't stand facing?
Let's see. Arias is tough. Arias is tough. He's just maybe not the biggest home run threat every time, but it's just like if he's leading off, and you're just like, man, I just really don't want him to wreak havoc and just slap a ball the other way, and then just I got to pitch from the stretch the rest of the inning or whatever. And he's tough. Who else, man? I mean, there's plenty. I haven't faced him in the big leagues, but Bryce Harper's owned me in spring training. So.
Has he?
Oh yeah.
He's owned a lot of people. Yeah, I feel like a guy like Arias is a perfect answer because. Giving up home runs to power hitters, you made a mistake. Like you left one up over the plate. A guy like Arias, you can make your pitch. Like you can just dot it outside corner and he takes it the other way. Like that was, I mean, he was much more of a power hitter, but Miggy was like that in his peak, where it's like teams are trying to shift. He's like, okay, I'm just going to go opposite field, like first pitch, fastball, like away. Yeah. Did you ever in like a simulated game or in practice, did you ever have the chance to face Miggy?
Yeah, when we reported in 2020 to the summer camp in Detroit, I was pitching. We were all in Comerica, and so I got to face him there. I struck him out, but hindsight, I think he might have wanted me to make the team, so he might have swung through a few perfect stuff. I don't know, but
what a teammate, man! Miggy was playing the long game.
He might have been. He might have been because I've seen him play. Yeah, I've seen him play some pitchers before, so I think he might have been.
Oh yeah, no, he's famous for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Last question for you here, man. Obviously, there's so much has changed throughout, the organization. So much has changed in your life and in terms of, how you've developed as a pitcher. If you right now could say one thing to the version of you that was drafted number 1 overall in 2018, if you could give him one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Roll with the punches, probably. It's not going to go. It's not going to be as linear, and it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows like you hope it's going to be. It's going to be difficult, but I know you got it in you, but just roll with the punches and keep moving forward, probably.
Fantastic. Well, look, we're glad to have you back, dude. I mean, I want you guys to be successful all the time. I'm glad to have you back in the mound. I hope you go out and shove, and you guys can win the Central again this year. Fans are rooting for you. We're all happy to have you back. So, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at Comerica this year, man. Thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Thank you again to Casey Mize. You know what, man? I mean, look, the Tigers are my team. They always will be my favorite team. At the same time, like, this is kind of taking Detroit Tigers keeping me employed right now. I mean, I appreciate it. These guys do not have to do that. They don't. And they don't have to get as in-depth as they get. They've been very open with me, and I really, really appreciate it. Easy guy to root for, Casey Mize. Not that was ever a concern, but I really appreciated him talking today, and you can tell he's hungry. He's ready to get back there on the mound. I really hope he succeeds this year, because if he does, he might be playing in October, and I look forward to that. So, that will do it for this episode. We will be back on Friday. I'm recording these all in advance. My head's all, what's the phrase that Portnoy uses? Noodle. I have a noodle head right now. But we will be back Friday. Interview with Brandon Walker coworker of Barstool Sports. So that one should be a lot of fun. Brandon obviously not wanting to shy away from his opinions. I got many tweets already being like, address the fact that he hates Michigan. It's like, all right, look, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it the way that we deal with the family business. Okay, this is not my first rodeo. But okay, in all seriousness, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment on who you want to see me interview next. No need for edits. That was fine. That was hilarious. Look, I appreciate all you guys' support. The reception's been great, and you're not going to get a pat on the back here, right? Nor does anyone deserve one. But I think what me and Austin are doing right now is stuff that I'm really proud of, and your reception has allowed me to be proud of what we're doing. So that does not go ignored. Thank you very much. Thank you again to Casey. We will see you guys back here on Friday. Have a great rest of your day. Peace and happiness. Go